often look forward to Foucault's theories time and again. I'm not a Foucault expert. I haven't really used his theories in majority of my work. My research area, although, revolves around gender, sexuality, culture, mostly focused on middle class communities. I also have currently 2 book chapters and few journal articles in the process of publication. However, that's not important. Now, moving forward to my portion, that is Passion and Delirium, in Foucault's Madness and Civilization, Volume 4, Chapter 4. So, to begin with, this part of Foucault is actually deals with, according to my opinion, it is one of the most humanist part of Foucault's all other theories, because starting from my days as a student to moving on to being an assistant professor and a researcher, I feel Foucault has always been difficult to grasp. At the same time, I have often found him very difficult to apply as well when dealing with real life situations. So when I read, or why the fact I chose Passion and Delirium as my portion to present, apart from all of the portions that were very well discussed by my fellow presenters here, was the fact that when I read about it, when I read about Foucault's Passion and Delirium, what got to me is the idea that how he looks as passion alongside delirium, which conventionally refers to a level of unreasoning, that we say, level 2 insanity. At the same time, when we place passion against it, and we kind of try to put this insanity, this irrationality within the realm of emotions and expressions. Okay, so now what Foucault is also trying to define, I feel, is that passion has many levels of expression, and delirium becomes a part of that. So while even he says that delirium is nothing but renunciation of images put forward in verbal articulation. So when I talk about a madman's blabber, for example, or a mad person's blabber, we often tend to think of it outside rationality, outside structure, something that Descartes was also talking about, the structure of language. So it is outside of a structure, and anything outside of the structure does not necessarily have to mean without structure. It could mean a different structure altogether. So this structure, or the way Foucault traces passion through delirious speech, is what stuck to me. Now, of course, this entire section is very, very huge. And while I would like to give a little bit of background, I don't think I will be able to cover like all in all. But still, I would go through certain sections. Starting would be how he moves from madness to passion. So Foucault begins by overturning modern assumption that madness is actually purely a cognitive disorder. In the earlier period, madness was often read as an excess of passion, an overflow of emotion or imagination that revealed something about human condition rather than a pathology to be cured. So, the way that Foucault begins dealing with madness itself, he says that uh, madness was not absence of rationality. In fact, it was excess of rationality. So now, placing this against the framework of decolonialism that we are trying to talk, when I was reading, I uh, thought of this movie that I'm sure most of us have seen, that is Haider, and how Irfan Khan's character, that is Rudar, who appears to be half ghost and half storyteller, and the speech that he gives, his monologue. And that monologue, it is both poetic, its structure can be broken down in similes and in metaphors. Okay, while in a very conventional manner, it could very well make it sound redundant when you look at it from the point of view of a madman's speech, when he is saying that "मैं ही समय हूँ, मैं ही था और मैं ही रहूँगा." All these, while it has poetic relevance, it also falls under the structure of irrationality. However, when you place passion into it, when you place emotion into being delirious, he says that is another discourse itself. So discourse on the rise based on how reality is experienced by people, and when this reality exceeds their confrontational power, it takes the form of a articulate, delirious speech. Okay. Um, Now, moving on to a more decolonial turn, uh, Foucault takes the European great confinement, but the colonial modernity exported these same logics of exclusion to the colonies as well. So, colonial psychiatry again, it pathologized the non-Western belief, ritual, and passion as native hysteria, fanaticism, as well as collective madness. Now, again, passion time and again has been also used in a colonialist as well as, in my opinion, in a very patriarchal way as well, where we see that passion in women itself becomes a problem for the patriarchal structures. In, for example, the birth of asylums, if you look at the birth of prisons, these are again women with quote unquote uncontrollable sexual urges, also termed as hysteria, that we see in terms of Foucault's work as well. So, if you place Foucault and Freud within the study of sexuality, within the study of this passion and delirium, you will often see that these women who were, diagnosed with hysteria, let's say, and if you look at them in a delirious point of view, so these people, they are moving towards madness, they're moving towards insanity because of the excess of passion that they feel in their body. So what Foucault does, why we also know that a part of Foucault's work is deals with biopower. So he also faces the body in the entire theoretical framework. So if you see that the body becomes a manifestation technique of both passion, as well as when this passion gets extremely restricted, extremely discouraged, and it faces these severe controlling tendencies of a patriarchal society, be it colonial, decolonial, post-colonial, uh, it moves towards delirium. Similarly, Heer Ranjha, for example, these are again passion turned to delirium. Uh, so this is the flow that I was trying to place while studying passion and delirium. Uh, in my handout, you will also find a delirious speech, an example of a speech that is given. So there you could, like, the participants can take their time and they can think about the passage. It has a lot, if you see, it has a lot of, what do I say, imaginary or visualistic sites. It talks about the moon, it talks about the streams, it talks about the trees, and everything very randomly in different sentences. However, when you read it together, and if you can relate your imagination, you start imagining a version of your stream, your trees, what your sky would look at, and then engage with one another, you will see that the images produced from these articulation again will be different for different people. And in Foucault's saying, these differences, the uniqueness is where the passionistic tendencies lie, right? So, what is my passion? With which eyes I look at the moon, and the level of passion there would be different from someone else who is looking with the same passion but at the stream, right? So, our object of passionistic views become different. And now, when this is about the human society. So if I relate it to the queer culture, for example, their passion for the longest time, we know that queer people, LGBTQ people, they were looked at with a pathologized perspective. So queerness needs to be treated, right? It becomes a point of scientific inquiry. We have all these treatment centers where they quote unquote try to treat queerness out of the body. But this queerness again can be defined in terms of passion. And within the course
कुछ नहीं
of that
जोड़ेगा ये नॉर्मल
treatment,
टेप है
that is supposed to
वो
make you ungay or
कुछ डबल टेप थोड़ी
take away
लगाया
the
है
gayness from you, the kind of treatment that they went
क्या चीज
through, that
अरे
was
इसमें
another
भी छूट
trauma
है इसमें
upon the
ये तो
body,
ऐसे उचड़
right?
जाएगा
So again, the body under the trauma, as well as not losing the passionistic side, together they become delirious. And slowly it moves towards madness that is away from civilization. But again, these people, they also become a civilization by themselves. this is what was my take on the text. But as I said, I did not dealt with Foucault very thoroughly in my life, mostly because I've been really scared to deal with him. Even while studying, reading this text, I was going absolutely losing my mind. That because the wordings I feel while Foucault is really
अरे
trying
रात में
to
12 बजे, 1
um,
बजे, 1:30 बजे, 2 बजे
talk about
भूत की
something
तरह
that
उठ करके
happens
उधर जाके
every day.
रो रहे हैं,
As
बात कर
a
रहे हैं, रो रहे हैं,
sociologist,
बात
when
कर
I
रहे हैं,
talk about
ऐसा नहीं
gender,
है।
when I'm trying to teach
मैं
gender, I use
परेशान
this,
हूँ।
but the way Foucault says it,
ये
it
लौंडे
sounds
चक्कर में
kind
है
of
जो ना,
technical to me
ऐसे
most
करके
of the times.
3 महीने तक
So
बर्बाद
this
किए,
is what
3
my
महीने में इतना काम
sociologistic
निपटा के कैसे
understanding
दूंगा
could
मैं?
be of the text. However, the text is
3
massive.
महीने में
I
बर्बाद भाई।
hope you, if you have time, please go through the
क्या
text
हुआ?
and
थोड़ी चली
maybe
गई?
we can talk
हाँ,
about it again later someday. I'd like to
खत्म है।
actually hear
1 महीना रोने में जहाँ से आया
this
था, तब
from
मैं
the
इतना रो
people
रहा
who
हूँ।
deal with Foucault a
मैं
lot.
कितना रो वो
Uh,
आदमी
and please let me
पता
know
है
if I'm
हिंदी
missing
चंडा
out
कर रहा
on
है।
the Foucault part of Foucault's theory. If you know, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Shanti. So you are in Rangpur right now or in home?
I am in wrong room,
Yeah.
but my mother is here with me, so she is not feeling very well.
So how the temperature? It's good right now, no?
Yeah, it's all right.
अरे कौन
Yeah.
बात कर रहा है भाई? शकल तो दिखाओ। अजीब हाल है। कौन सा मोड में चले गए? हम ही को नहीं दिख रहा है।
Uh, if
स्पीकर।
anyone has any question or wants to add on this, please. Okay, Shantani, if you are free, you can join us later also, so we can discuss when we will start reading that book, Madness and Civilization. But your presentation was wonderful.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will try to stay with all of you. But I really need to take my mom to the health center. She has
ऊपर से सुन,
actually asthma, so
मूसा का भाई,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
मैं तुझे क्लास में
No,
हमेशा
it's
तुझे
okay.
इम्पोर्टेंट करती हूँ। मैंने तुम्हें मैसेज किया था, तभी
Okay,
मुझे
thank
समझ
you
आती
very
है। मैंने कहा
much.
मैंने मैसेज किए,
And
तुम
that was
12
very
की
brief.
बैठी
I
थी,
actually
सामने तुम्हारा
couldn't
चैप्टर था, तुम्हें
explain
पढ़ाया
much.
मैंने।
I did
फिर
have
इतना
a
खाना
very
खा लिया है,
detailed
फिर
note
मुझसे
prepared, but
ये
because I
पागल
was
आ गया,
really
अब चाहिए
rushing
कि
through.
फाड़ दूँ और
But
दिक्कत आ गई। बहन
these
पता नहीं
are
क्या
one
फालतू
of
का
the
टॉपिक
very
दिमाग में
like
रहती थी, बिना
honest
फालतू को।
opinion, if
फिर
you ask
टीचर
me,
ने
in a
आके
very
ना ये ऐसे डांटा,
unfiltered
बोला मैं
way,
ऐसे नहीं
not
कह रही
scripted way
और बाद
of
में
what
पूरा
I
साथ
really
में ही
feel
जाएगा।
when I read
तुम मेरे
Foucault.
ऊपर
I
रहती
really
थी,
try
बोलो मैं ऐसे नहीं
hard
कह
to
रही,
relate
मैं
to
कह
him,
रही।
but I
टीचर ने
also
डांटा
get to
और
the
टीचर ने
point
क्यों मुझसे क्या कहा भाई, मैसेज कर दिए बोले
where
कि
it
आज
sounds very
मैंने कहा भाई टीचर के सामने
sociological to
मैसेज क्यों
me.
करो?
And then if I lose that track, then I lose the
फीस भी
track
तुम्हारा ढाई सौ रुपया
altogether.
का है ना?
So yeah, that is
मैं
one of
इसको
the
बोली तू
reasons why I
बेइज्जती है
joined
बोले।
this workshop, because I wanted to know Foucault with others than I do individually.
बात सुन, दिमाग की नहीं थी बोली। मैं तो करूँ बोली
Yeah.
दिमाग में
Thank
मछली
you,
की दिमाग की
Shantanu.
नहीं है।
So if it is possible, stay with us till the
चांदो
end.
राजा खड्डे जाके
Okay.
जान लगाऊं, सूद लेके जाऊं,
So
खड्डे
let
वाला
us
क्या काम
go
था?
to our next
नहीं तेरे खड्डे
presenter.
कौन है? ये
Yeah,
भी आता
Varuna
है कि
Yadav. She is
दिमाग
already here.
टूटी हो रही है।
Then start.
So, um, I will be firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Varuna. I am a senior scholar at Central University, Haryana, doing my PhD on themes of domestic surveillance and detective fiction of Golden Age. So, the topic we will be covering today, most of it has been covered by Prashanti, I would say. I would like to, go briefly into it, and then
हरीश
we can
यादव,
discuss how
वरुणा
we
यादव।
can, relate it with our contemporary scenario. So, as we had discussed, 18th century
बट सी
reformers
इज फ्रॉम
decided to
हरियाणा।
humanize the forms of punishment. So, they shifted their focus on reforming the soul of a person, on giving that the idea of pain should be in focus rather than actually torturing the body itself. Now, Foucault here critically, points out that why would they want really a humane concern, or was it because the torturous executions also at times evoked a sense of pity
अरे
among the
यार, अभी 9 ही
spectators?
बजा है।
So
2 घंटा झेलना पड़ेगा ये
anyhow,
मुझे।
then he moves on and tells
ये
how the
वर्कशॉप चल
reformers
रही है।
decided that there should be such a
मिशेल
punishment
फुको
which
की एक पूरी
hinders a
बुक है
person from the idea of
300 पेज
committing the
की,
crime itself.
उसको जो है हम
And
लोग
for
कुल
this,
मिला
they
करके
suggested that the retaliatory
मतलब
system of public torture should be
30 to
replaced with a
35
system of
पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं,
obstacle signs.
सबको
Now,
एक
what
एक
does
चैप्टर
this
मिला हुआ है,
obstacle sign mean
अपना
here?
अपना सब कोई पढ़ रहा
Well,
है
they defined that
और
this
उसको
sign
एक्सप्लेन
system is
कर रहा
actually a
है,
type
मतलब
of
लाइक 15-20
representation
मिनट
of
आधे घंटे के
punishment
सेशन में।
as it occurs within the minds of people whenever they think about committing a crime. For example, if a person is thinking about attempting a robbery, then if they know that there would be a severe punishment for the same,
अपार्ट
so
फ्रॉम
then
इंटरेस्ट
this
ही विल
thought
गेट अ
itself
सर्टिफिकेट
will
आल्सो।
hinder them. The thought of the
बस
punishment will
वही तो है,
act
बाकी
as an
सब वो
obstacle to the desire of
मेन
committing
चीज
the
तो
crime
सर्टिफिकेट
itself.
है।
So the reformers proposed on how
सो
to now
दैट आई कैन
implement such
शो
a
टू माय
system where punishment's image itself
सुपरवाइजर
is
एचओडी।
ingrained
ये बंद
in
कर
the
दो, पूरा
minds of
फुल हो गया,
people,
उसको
so
खोल दो।
much so that they self-surveil their own actions. And for that, they propose
3
some
घंटे से चल
rules.
रहा है।
So the first rule was that it's called the rule of minimum quantity, where it states punishment should be just intense enough to outweigh the interest of the crime.
इसमें क्या
It
बनेगी ये?
shouldn't be too much, it shouldn't be too less,
चाय
but
बनेगी
rather
इसमें?
it be a calculated loss in opposition to the profit that the person was thinking that he or she would get if they commit a crime. So it's not about brutal excess like it was done in public executions. It is about setting a dissuasive balance. This is the birth cost benefit analysis in justice. And why is it called gentle form of punishment? Because it seeks the minimum effective dose of pain, not the maximum. Then next rule is the rule of ideal susceptibility. Punishments should act on curbing the desire of the criminal. It aims to manipulate what they find valuable. The gentleness hidden here is that it will leave the body out of the punishment part, and the body will then be useful for acting as an instrument for the correction of the soul itself. So there will be internalization of certain form of norms to transform the person completely, rather than just punishing them and letting them go after that punishment. So it will have long term impact. That was the focus. Then the next rule is of lateral effects. The reformers said that the true target should not only be the culprits who have committed the crime. The true targets are the potential criminals in the society. The aim is to gently ingrain norms of crime and punishment in psychological minds of others. It is a form of mass education through semiotics of obstacle to the desire of crime, as I said before. Then there is rule of certainty. There
मनचाहा
should be a
अकेलापन अनचाहे
perfect
रिश्तों से
machine-like
बेहतर है।
system of
ये बात तो है।
these ideas of crime and punishment as
जिंदगी
to
में अगर
how
कोई
they
टेंशन
work
नहीं है
within
ना,
the
साला
minds of
कोई
people.
सारा चीज छोड़ छाड़
So
के
that when power is
निकल जाओ कहीं
exercised,
यार,
it
खाने के
is
लिए तो कहीं
exercised
पे भी
through
मिल जाएगा।
predictability. For example,
एक
if a
टाइम किसी के
person
यहाँ भी काम
knows
करेगा, कोई
that
एक पेट
this
खिला
is
देगा।
the punishment that
मस्त
they will
जिंदगी
get
में
after
घूम घूम के
committing a
बिताओ,
crime,
पूरा
then the
दुनिया देख
sign
लो।
of punishment will inevitably settle in their mind stably. Uh, then
वी
they
आर
focused
एक्चुअली
on, and I quote one of the
अच्छा।
reformer that Foucault also quotes, that the exact relations need to be maintained between the nature of the offense and the nature of the punishment. For example, if there is a theft committed, it should be punished by confiscation of some property that the thief aims to steal in the first place. Then, if there is arrogance, it should be battled with humiliation, or if there is murder, then death sentence. So they felt that the law must appear as necessary in itself. There should be minimum requirement of coercion. Rather, power must act beneath the gentle force of nature, thereby reducing the desire of committing the crime itself. And all these signs will eventually help them in training the people towards a virtuous society. Another rule that they thought was very important was the rule of duration of punishment. When public executions used to happen, it would be a one time thing and it would be a spectacle. A spectacle would be created, and many people will then have multiple narratives about it. But if we think about imprisonment, then there can be a full training program that the culprit can be um, put to. So there will be a shift from physical power to economic and administrative power through maintaining this rule of duration. They aimed that the penalty should constantly renew in the memories of others, not just the culprit. For example, if a thief knows that if I commit this crime, my hands will be cut, then that will remain as a symbol or
अच्छा, the
reminder
untold
in
story
the
of
memories of
Taj
others,
Mahal.
also as a reminder of shame in the culprit's mind as well. But since we are talking about gentle punishment through imprisonment, in that scenario, the imprisonment will initially involve harsh measures against the culprit, and gradually, the freedom of the culprit, will be increased slowly till the time of their bail, in order to enforce their transformation. In such a scenario, it was assumed that punishment should be accepted by all with consent, so that the obstacle signs get ingrained in the minds even of those who are innocent till now but can be potential suspects. The focus is to give a lesson to the spectators. In this way, there will be tiny theatrics of punishment sitting across various corners of society, in gardens or somewhere. People will themselves start mutually surveilling people around them or surveilling themselves, because now the idea of punishment is certain as well as the duration of punishment is certain. So again, the idea of surveillance becomes very important in such kind of punishment. Also, this kind of surveillance will then force people to pick out the deviants. There will be constant observation, classification, and eventually modulation of behavior. The law will not be needed to coarsely transform them, rather they'll themselves start transforming into a predictable pattern. And that's how he describes the idea of normalization also, which he eventually elaborates in the next chapter that we'll discuss. However, now reformers worried that if the theatrical punishment are in every corner of society, uh, there's also need to ensure that culprits do not roam freely among us, and that is why it is needed that these punishments, or with all these rules, even if it is gentle, it should be given privately. And that's when they decided to go on and adapt a large centralized system of prison. Now Foucault asks here, um, we had moved on from the torturous punishment towards a more gentle way of punishment. But is it really followed? And then he talks about what the reformers thought about it, because many times we do see that the guards are arbitrarily using their power, and many times unnecessarily prison guards act against the culprits. So it's not entirely gentle. So Foucault asked, did the reformers really look for these loopholes? Well, they did. Eventually, it became clear to them that prisons actually do not serve the roles as had been envisioned before, because prisons tend to throw a person into despair instead of leading towards transformation or reformation. So, the prison system would involve disciplinary mechanisms like imposing fixed timetables and rigorous training sessions, etc. So Foucault points out that they initially realized that yes, the prison system is not as gentle as it was envisioned to be, but then they reformed the prison system to include the word correction, as we have seen many times in USA and in UK. Prison systems are called correctional facilities. So it's like a person is paying a debt to the society for a crime if they have committed a crime. So the prison would work as keeping security of their body while reforming their soul. It's like a debt they have paid for being a weaker person, for giving it to the crime and not controlling themselves and following the norms. So it was, in a way, romanticized. The prison idea was, it was sanitized rather. That okay, maybe if we include the training sessions and disciplinary mechanisms, then there won't be coercive power used, and it will still be a gentle way of punishment. Now here Foucault ends that despite knowing all the dangers of prison system, why did they still agreed to this a kind of reformatory system that still wasn't completely gentle in its nature. So here Foucault describes that because it is not about making the punishment gentle, it's all about the mechanisms of power that work behind this all, as to how they want to put control and exercise control over the large masses. They know that if they commit if people have committed a crime, and if they give a public execution, it will be a short term spectacle. But if the rule of duration is followed and people have served prisons for longer duration, that will leave a larger and much more effective impression on the minds of others as well. So it was not about making the punishment gentle, it was about exercising even more insidious type of control over the minds of people. uh, so in a way Foucault is visibilizing the invisible threads of power in 18th century prison system, or the system of crime and punishment as it worked back then. My question for discussion would be, do we in 21st century find an equivalent of such gentle forms of punishment which are invisibly uh, surrounding us, but we are not deliberately visible towards their politics? How, for example, like Prashanti also mentioned that we are not completely recognizing, or even if we are not completely resisting the algorithm in our digital ecosystem. And it is a kind of power for sure. It is digital surveillance, and they're constantly watching us. They also do predictive analysis of our moves, and we know it, and yet we succumb to exhibitionism. We all tend to take part in viral trends that actually are gimmicks of marketing by this capitalist system. Many times we know it and yet we succumb to it. For example, we feel that yes, if we use a Fitbit app, we will be following a certain way of managing our health. But is this way actually a kind of norm that has been set up by capitalist society? Do we always question that? So Foucault basically is trying to push us to probe the audience, to visibilize these invisible structures of power that are surrounding us. I leave you with this question. If 19th century disciplinary institution was prison, then what will be its 21st century equivalent? Is it the digital platform that we are all right now also on, and we are doing a meeting here? Or is it the school system where the whole idea of discipline is taught in the first place? Where we are taught that if we do not meet certain criteria, certain rules and regulations, then we will be facing certain kind of gaze that will make us uncomfortable and feel not fitted in. So where does this disciplinarity start? Because we are completely steeped in the disciplinary power that Foucault talks about. So I would leave you with that. Thank you.
Since we were talking about the school system, I would like to say, yeah, the school system definitely, I mean, it's not a new thought, that's a very Foucauldian thought, that the school system is an extension of the disciplinary system. And I'd like to give an example in a convent school. And then my experience of it was like very revealing. Upon studying Foucault, I could relate with it a lot. Usually we had like a distinction between boarding, like border students, and then day scholar students. And there was a considerable difference in treatment, about, and also like with the opportunity pass. I think uh, in that system, we were more of taught how to be obedient rather than um, going after our curiosity and then exploring more of the doubts that we had. And it was more about like, yeah, the teachers, I'm not blaming the teachers. particularly in anybody, like yeah, not anyone in particular, but I mean, if like they always encourage that, if you have questions, you can ask us. But when we did ask questions, it was more of like ridicule. Like, you're asking even this?
ऑनलाइन अकाउंट
Like,
में कुछ पैसे
can
हैं?
you not
छः
can you
सात सौ
not get this? But I'm not
हाँ,
saying that this is
सेंड
bad,
कर दो.
as in like it, but then it does leave a lasting impression on how not to speak much. It makes you more obedient. It
नहीं
makes you more
भिजवाना नहीं है, मतलब एक्चुअली
subservient
आज
to
रात को बाद के
authority.
बाद जो EMI कटेगी.
And then there, and also regarding the syllabus, like the government has total control about what you're taught, how much of history you know about, and how much you're learning about history, and the way you look at it. The narrative is very
वही
controlled,
एक ही तो नंबर है.
and that
एट सेवन
affects,
फाइव
because
सेवन
that individual goes on to become a member, a
थ्री वन.
working, functional member of the society.
बैंक
And
अकाउंट
the
इसी एक नंबर से
effect
है,
we
मेन
have
नंबर
on
यही
such a
है.
developing
उस पर तो अभी
stage
रिचार्ज करा लिया था,
on
इस वजह से
such
उससे फर्क पड़ता
children,
है. अभी
they
फिर
last
इसी में रिचार्ज कराएंगे.
most of,
दो सौ
like,
पच्चीस रुपया BSNL को दे दिया, अब
unless
तीन
you
चार
are
महीने आराम
critical
करेंगे,
and
उसके
then
बाद
you
फिर.
about exploring,
हाँ हाँ, ये तो है.
you get to see and expose how the power is worked. But then most of the time, people do not question what they learn and the normatives. So I think the school system is very prevalent in serving a disciplinary institution. Although it does look neutral, it definitely is not.
व्हाट डेफिनेटली इज नॉट. आगे तो बोलो. चुप हो गई ले. हेलो.
I mean, yeah, it starts from there. Many times we believe, because it's a very common Foucauldian trope to talk about whenever we are talking about surveillance, that we believe that yes, this disciplinarity is internalized since childhood because we are all enrolled in school system and all. But it also somewhere it's a part of how culture operates as well. From the very beginning, family itself, we know that it's a kind of social institution. So Foucault in this specific section asks, who decides what is crime? The society decides it. It is a kind of construct at the end of the day. So this gentle form of punishment also included that the idea of crime has to be made certain, has to be fixated, so that it is effectively ingrained as what to do and what not to do. And when we talk about surveillance, which is used to exercise such control, how are we easily consenting towards surveillance? Because many a times we are thinking that people are hearing us for our care, for our concern, for our safety. But is it care or a type of scare? Disguised, it's a kind of scare disguised under the notion of care. That is when we start asking, when we realize this. Even in minute routine activities, we can see how much we have given in to certain kind of normative behavior rather than questioning it all the time, just for the comfort of living peacefully. So it's not like we are always resisting what is happening around us, despite knowing that yes, there are multiple power systems in work behind it.
I want to add about what you pointed out regarding who decides crime. During the reformation of the penal system, although the reformation was a clash of interest from many different groups, so what should be noted is that the policies were primarily written by lawyers and magistrates of the penal system. So the ideology does play into role because they are the one who wrote the policies, right? And that just gets enacted in society. So you see how a particular group has more advantage over deciding what gets decided as crime or criminal, or who is a criminal, or what acts are criminalized.
Hi, can I
So
go?
then,
Can I ask something?
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm thinking this aloud as I'm speaking right now. I may not be very articulate, but it's very interesting to see like Prashanti and Varuna who are using Foucault in their work. So this is like maybe a question that we can revisit later. But like I was just wondering, since Foucault is so embedded in history, and of course, Western European history is what he's using and creating his genealogy from there, and he's sort of building a case for his concepts all come from that history. And when we speak about wanting to decolonize Foucault, have you also been looking at newer problems or more indigenous, even sort of, let's say problems, and trying to look at them from the Foucauldian perspective? And if so, if you can talk a little about that, maybe Shohini, if you can see, like, would love to hear how it is being applied, like Foucault's concepts, can they and are they being applied to caste, etc., among people in this group? Like that is something that I would be interested to understand. And it's actually Lakshana's question that also prompted me to ask this, because I mean, her like question is interesting because like how do we think about why rape is so prevalent in a country like India, and is it not clear enough that it is something that should not be done? uh, what kind of measures need to be taken in that case? Is gentle punishment an alternative in such a case? I mean, I'm also just trying to sort of blur the boundaries between theory and practice and see if, that Eurocentric approach, and if people in India are able to think of Foucault, um, like actually that's one of the questions I have in my handout. Like how would Foucault respond to this reality? Which is so are theorists and people and scholars like yourselves, are you able to do that? I'm just curious. And then again, because we are in a different context, is that transition happening? Because you would have read other scholars also, which is why I'm sort of directing this question at you, that you must have also seen other scholars in India who are trying to apply Foucault. So I hope my question makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are many points, but I was thinking some alternative way. Means when I was learning about trauma-centric pedagogy, so in that particular area, the scholars are saying that you should not use such words that can trigger someone's emotion or that can trigger someone's previous trauma. So I was wondering if I can replace rape with any other word, but I could not find that can. But it is recognized in Indian Penal Code, so I'm using it. But but the pedagogy is saying that you should not use such words, which, as you have seen in many web series, in Western web series, that you should not use monster in front of a child, that you should not use certain words. So in that, but I'm using rape. But I think those who are from political science background, or those who have understood the power culture, so rape, this question I think is not relevant with Foucault, because rape is not a person's um, problem. Means it is a symptom of a, it is a social symptom. It has taken birth from a power culture or social culture. uh, if someone has, means if a man has raped, or if a old man, irrespective of the relation, he has raped this girl or raped that person, it becomes a problem of the culture, patriarchal culture. It is not the problem of that individual that he has raped. Means I will give an easy example. So I grew up in a house where everyone is hitting my sister, or everyone is hitting my brother, younger brother. So it is very normal for me to hit that person, so it does not become my problem. So it is not that I am guilty. I have seen years I have seen this thing. Another thing, I will try to bring Freud here. Freud is saying that this kind of behavior or this kind of habit, we we just do not see and replicate it. This is generational trauma. This behavior is generational, and it comes with our genes. Means genes does not give us nose, ears, or hair. It also gives us this behavior temperament. So if the culture is so strong, the I won't say patriarchal culture, it's wide uh, concept, but if I say the power culture or the rape culture does not mean someone is raping another. Rape culture benefits every man. Means, how will I put this? If you go to the, if a man says, okay, let's walk at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. because the roads will be empty, we can enjoy the emptiness. It's not that the man is wrong or man has done something wrong. Because of the rape culture, the roads are empty in that particular street, that women are not feeling safe to go there, and men are enjoying that emptiness. But men are not, those men are not involved in rape, so they will say not all men. But the rape culture, it is very different. And here, if we see Foucault, we have to go few years back to our colonial period. Means, we can compare our colonial period with Foucault's understanding of punishment. And I was reading Joy James. She wrote that how the Americans uh, try to impose or try to criminalize the black Americans, black person, without giving any punishment. And they have stereotype that that the black Americans are violent, aggressive. They do not behave themselves even in the prison. Any kind of prison fighting is there, it always a black person or a woman or man is involved in that prison. So there are many atrocities on black people. Similarly, there are many atrocities happened in India as well, in the name of law, in the name of culture, in the name of morality. So another thing that I can remember, that I also feel about the decolonial thought, but I'm coming to the question later. So Foucault is saying that we have to be very aware of these powers, about these algorithms, or about the surveillances. So my point is that, means, this is a long term long term protest or awareness. Means, it's very difficult for one to go to candle march every day, to fight for the articles doctor for every day. So Joy Jim is saying that it is not possible for a
जॉय
human
जेमस
being
नहीं
to be
जेम्स
radical,
जॉयस
to be aggressive, to be strong all the years. Means, this is a long term fight. Means, generations and generations will involved in this fighting to get justice. So we cannot go for 3 months, we want justice, and then everything is silent. Okay, so she is saying about alternative ways of continuing the protest, or continuing the ask for justice, that more like academic support group, community health care. She has given so many understandings of it. Now, if we put Foucauldian lens to the global south or the indigenous context, as I was not ready, I can show you few videos. Even there, where there are no laws, there is one tribe. I think if you have seen, there is one tribe in Indonesia. So in that tribal group, the law of the country cannot interfere. So they have their own regulations, own systems. So it is available in YouTube, Tanjora tribe, I will share it. So they will not, when a person dies from that community, they will not go and bury that person in a ground, or they do not do the last rites of the person. They will keep the dead body in their own home for 10 years, for 6 years, 7 years. So how Foucault will look into this, means why a person, means they do not, means at that time, now we have internet and everything, they do not have access to information. So how a person will
Is he audible to the rest of you?
No, no, I think there's some connectivity problem.
Yes.
Oh, while we wait for Sohini to reconnect, Aditi posted this like a really astute comment, in my opinion, if you don't mind me saying so, in the chat, saying that rape has become a way of showcasing or asserting power over others more than the aspect of pleasure involved in it. I thought that was really impactful. Aditi, do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I think I am audible. Yeah, my connection was lost, I think. So so with this small rituals or traditions, we cannot actually challenge the indigenous knowledge system. But in this area of thought, in the global south, we have a tendency always to rationalize anything with western lens. If western science is or rationality is itself a western concept, if we cannot rationalize any ritual, if we cannot rationalize any behavior, we are rejecting that thing. If we cannot rationalize god, we are rejecting god. If we are cannot rationalize any food habit, we are rejecting that thing. But the problem is we are now again starting with indigenous knowledge system, means Indian knowledge system, and all the other countries are bringing out their own indigenous thing, which is also very statist in nature, means the state approved syllabus is there. And it is, I think, our duty as a scholar to suggest or to means going beyond the curriculum and discuss with the students, discuss with in this academic groups, that these are the thinkers, or these are the rituals, or these are the religious stories we will discuss. We will not say these are true or false, but we have to bring those things in the discussion, keeping aside the western rationality or western science aside for a few minutes. I'm not saying that we have to support each and everything, but let's discuss everything. Means if you say there, means there are stories of Hanuman, let's study Hanuman. Means in Kendra Vidyalaya, students read, means Ramayana, Mahabharat in their textbook, but it's a very like, means informative kind of thing. They do not read from a critical perspective, means what we should take and what we should not believe, or what is not critically argumentative. So these are some of the points I can make right now, and we can continue with the discussion. So thank you, Varuna. So we will move to our next presenter, Dilshana. Dilshana, she was there a few minutes ago. What? Okay, Priyanka, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, Priyanka, we can start with your discussion. So, yeah, there are many interpretations of rape, rape culture, and the action, the punishments related to it, and not just in Indian context. In different countries, they have their different interpretations to rape. Sure, yeah, it's about asserting power, and it is nothing about pleasure. And pleasure, I don't know, pleasure involves maybe in marital rape. I do not means crime, punishments. These are not my area for say, but yeah, I have read from political power perspective, and I have also read it from gender perspective. But I believe that rape is not an individual's fault. Means it is a symptom of the society. So if you are not giving women a power, even a small power to desire, means yeah, yeah, I don't think, yeah, pleasure is ever involved in rape. So yeah, Sachin, you are right. So these are very general uh, comments on the rape, that no, it does not decide your means rape does not happen because of your dress, because of your these and these things. Because of the rape culture, rape occurs, and the culture has, it has been normalized. If you go and see the data, National Crime Report Bureau data, the amount, the degree of violence is happening on women in India. So if you see more and more, when day by day the data, it is shocking. You will see it is increasing. Means it has been so normalized that it gets very difficult. Now you will see small controversial videos I see on Facebook and Insta, that a woman is hitting a car driver, or a woman is not a good driver. She is not she cannot she's a not good driver. And then there are many other videos about alimony. So these are other power dynamics, and those who are from a law background, yeah, they can debate it better. But yes, it is never about pleasure, and it is a social symptom rather than a personal pleasure. Because I have bought that way, my circles are that way, that it has been so normalized that I can think, means it is for easy for me to think like this. Means Simran, I do not know Simran, but if I
No, no,
search,
sure. Actually, so
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I don't know if my question wasn't clear, but because I'm not, firstly, I'm not at all suggesting, I didn't say, didn't talk about rape involving pleasure either. So I don't know, why we are, because we all know that. I mean, this is something that we know. My question was, how do we look at problems which are persistent in India? Can we try to understand them? And in sociology, whether it's Foucault, we're not talking about the individual anyway. We are focused on the social, right, and the structures of power. So my question was, how can we understand rape from a Foucauldian perspective in India, in the Indian context? That is what I was actually asking. So and my other question was, like, since so many of you are into Foucault and you're reading, and I'm sure then you've also read other Indian scholars who have worked using Foucault, who've tried to understand social problems through a Foucauldian lens. So I was just asking for some good references of those, so that I can see how Foucault is being used, and hopefully is being used in a decolonized manner, rather than, because otherwise what happens is, Foucault has also spoken about prisons and schools, we are also talking about prisons and schools, but Indian society has a lot more. We have caste, we have, the rape culture, we've got other kinds of social issues which are peculiar to India. So my understanding was, and please, please, I would be happy to be corrected if I'm not understanding it correctly, that we are also trying to see, we are firstly trying to understand Foucault, which is what the purpose of the workshop is. And after that, we are trying to see if we can use some of his theories and concepts to understand social reality today, which I believe is quite a challenge. And again, my thinking is that because he is so embedded in the Eurocentric tradition, and he is, of course, using European history from France and the continent over there to explain social realities, like, can we actually use Foucault for current Indian, social realities? That is what I was sort of after. So I don't know. I hope I'm clearer this time.
No, no, I was taking your name just to give an example. Like Simran, she does not know me, I don't know her. Now, if my network of powers, okay, so if I am a male or anyone, if my network of power knows Simran, so we start discussing Simran, checking her Facebook account, checking her everything. So Simran will not be, means I will know her. Means even I do not know her personally, I will know her. So when I will meet her, she will be like, okay, hello, who are you? Okay, Shoini, what you do? I will be like over friendly with her, because my network of agency has already not empowered me, already made me familiarized with Simran. So I was taking your name. Now again, Foucault has stated about surveillance. No, yeah, surveillance, and now we are saying if anything is happening in a campus, we have to keep CCTV cameras, which is a very contemporary debate. Now, what Foucault will say, or what the decolonial scholars will say, yeah, it will regulate the behavior, it will control the sexuality, or it will mm, hold the person accountable for their behavior. Okay, that you have done this, you have said this thing, you will be punished. But the means the woman will be still restricted with their movements, women will be still restricted to show their desire. Means on the surveillance will maybe on will work with like the laws and regulation will work like 20 or 30%, but overall the structure will not change. So to bring structural change means you have to go deeper. That was I was saying, that the agency of power in India, as you told, the caste, the class, the patriarchy is not about male, as we know, the schools. If my agency of power is strong, and my I am also in the minority ideology, so it is easy for me to uh, do the crime without feeling that it is a crime for me, because they have already made me feel like that, okay, I know I can do this. It has already legitimized in my mind with the agency in within me. Yeah, so I think we can go to next presenter. So next will be, yeah, Priyanka. Uh, if Dilshana is not present,
Yes, I'm
Priyanka.
present. Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, hello. Hi, everyone. So my internet is unstable. Internet connection is unstable. So I'll just keep my video off if that's fine. I'm so sorry, but my internet, for some reason, I keep getting logged out of Zoom. So I'll just keep my video off. That's fine. And my topic, so the chapter I'll be discussing from this text is docile bodies, so which is in quite in continuation to what we were already discussing in the last previous presentation, as well as like Prashanti said, we have already become docile bodies, which I quite agree with. And by the end of this presentation, maybe I'll be able to explain what Foucault means by docile bodies, and why I think the statement that we've already become docile bodies just makes sense. So, to give a bit of a context, so in Foucault actually says that we were discussing punishment and torture, and one of the unintended consequences of public torture was that it actually reduced the convict's body to a mere site of conflict between the sovereign and the masses. So there were a lot of riots every other public execution, which was quite common, and so this actually prompted the reformers to look at the prison as a more quote unquote humane option to counter the possibility of unrest. And so here we have to understand that discipline actually generated a new economy and politics, whereby the institutions created docile bodies, which needed to be constantly observed and therefore controlled. So, what does docile mean? To go back to the meaning, certain meaning of what does actually docile mean? It means it just means the body is willing to accept control or instruction, basically submissive, to be submissive, right? So docile bodies, the chapter is all about how the body is controlled, not through aggressive or overt forces of power, but through subtle, continuous techniques of discipline, which actually shape the individual to conform to the current societal norms. So this is maybe a single definition explanation of what the chapter is actually trying to say. But to go into the details, so in the beginning, so in the beginning of the chapter, what Foucault is trying to understand is to rethink about this ideal soldier of the 17th century. Like, right. So he starts off by describing the attributes of the ideal 17th century soldier. How do you recognize a soldier? So their attributes, soul is pertained solely to their body and action, their posture, and how they behave. And so in the classical age, the body was the target of power, right? So so the docile body was associated with being subjected, used, transformed, and improved. So
आज खाना नहीं खाया हाँ
was replaced, right? So in the 18th century, so the in 18th century actually introduced projects of docility in a very new scale, linking bodily control with economic usefulness. So there is a body which is so now there
पाँच
is a
पाँच
body
चार चार
which
चम्मच
strives
खाया
for productivity or growth or improvement of one's own skill, which is also shaped to be obedient. So that's what is happening here in the 18th century, when the discipline, the idea of discipline, and how discipline is induced on the body, how control is induced on the body changes. So the body is seen as so the body now
आज पानी नहीं
is
गर्म करना है हाँ
so the control over the body became more
हाँ
detailed and organized in the 18th century, which is focusing on constant supervision and regulation as well. And then discipline also began to spread from places like monasteries and armies to schools, factories, and hospitals, becoming a general way of managing people. And power, so now power worked not worked through routines and organization rather than open force, creating what Foucault called a political anatomy of the body. So this is what he says in the so this is how so he introduces the technique. So he introduces the discipline as the technique or the method through which how the body is trained and disciplined. Right. So what he says is that even though there some sort of discipline had been
अच्छा
present in every era, like in the
आज जब
monasteries or
रिलेशनशिप के पीछे 3 महीने
military,
से
in the
हो रहा
17th
है
and 18th
बट ये
centuries,
ज्ञान क्या
became
देता है फिर
very
ये
much a mainstream tactic for domination. And so this gave birth to political anatomy and the mechanics of power. So he then goes on to propose a division of for explaining how discipline actually induces the body with control. So the first point he says is that the what he titles as the art of distribution. So he Foucault argues that so now the by optimizing distribution of the spaces inhabited by these social bodies, where the hindrances or any hindrance to workflow is
अच्छा
avoided,
इधर नहीं उधर से
and
आया क्या
efficient usage and
उधर से
management of
आया क्या
space is encouraged. For example, like in institutions like schools, factories, and barracks. So they are these
बताओ
enclosed spaces, partitioning where there's a partitioning of space, which is also
हमारी गर्लफ्रेंड ऑर्डर
cellular
करेगी
in
ना
structure.
अकेले बैठ के
So
खाएगी तुझे खिलाएंगे
by
भी नहीं
optimizing
रात भर बैठ के
optimizing
खाएंगे
distribution of space, so this was one of the
हमारा तो
method through which
मिलाया तो खाना नहीं जा रहे
discipline was
बताओ
induced. Discipline induces the body with control. So the second
अरे
argument
ये भी एक
he
ये
talks
भी
about is
प्यार का
the
एक
control
तरीका
of
है
activity. So controlling activity involved time regulation through like strict timetables. For example, like how you see in the schools and colleges, like we follow strict timetables, and uh, so that time is strictly managed through schedules and routines and which guide our behavior, right? So guide behavior by hour, and every movement and every gesture is trained in such a manner that it is so that it is trained and it
सुनो
is
इंस्टा पे भेज दो
and
उसको
improved to make it useful and efficient. And the goal is
कौन
actually to prevent
अच्छा
waste and
भेज
ensure
दो
continuous productivity. So,
कौन सा
treating the body as a managed tool. So, and the third point he brings about is he talks about is the organization of genesis. And so he says that discipline also organizes time to measure growth and progress. So the body undergoes specialized training to be transformed into productive and disciplined bodies, which is aided by the provision of windows for timely intervention. And activities are divided. So in the step, activities are divided into steps and evaluated through exams or tests to track improvement. And exercises actually become tools for controlling people by shaping their habits and abilities over time. So this turns training into a form of power that builds both skill and obedience at the same time. Right. So, and the last point he brings is the composition of forces, which is basically the cooperation between. So it's like so in the military, for example,
पहली
if you
बार
see in
धर्म
the
संकट
military,
में कौन
like
फंसा
how
था
discipline arranges individuals
पहली
like
बार
parts
धर्म
of
संकट में
machine,
कौन
right?
फंसा था
You must have heard of
क्या ना
it's
अरे
like
वो नहीं
so it's
करण
these
वरण
are the
नहीं वो
different
सब तो
parts
बहुत
of
पुरानी
body
बात हो
and
गई अभी
parts
हाल
of
फिलहाल
leg
की बात बता
which
रहा हूँ
works
थ्री
together
इडियट्स मूवी
as one,
में क्या नाम था उसका
right?
आर
So,
माधवन का
so then the movements are
नहीं
synchronized
नहीं
and to
वो तो
create
आमिर खान
this
था
order. So you must have seen how
आर माधवन का
military
क्या कैरेक्टर का क्या नाम
parade,
था
right? So it's very much a representation of how militaries
एक तो
work.
राजू रस्तोगी था
Like movements are
फरहान
synchronized to create order,
हाँ
efficiency, and strength.
फरहान कुरैशी
And
वही ना
so discipline
उसके यहाँ
basically
जो खाने के
combines
लिए जाता
physical
है खाने पे
coordination with the social
बेटा भिंडी
organization,
120
making
रुपए
groups
किलो हो
more
गई है
productive.
पनीर तो अब सुनाना
This
की दुकान पे
strategy
मिलेगी
actually,
अब वो
what Foucault
धर्म
says is that
संकट में
this
जो है मतलब पड़
strategy
गया
goes beyond
लाइक अब माँ को संभाले उसके बाप को
war,
संभाले या फिर पनीर को
just in the
संभाले
case
पनीर
of
वाला
war,
छोड़ो
but
यार बाकी काम
it
हो
goes
आया
beyond
खाने पे
to
कंसंट्रेट
it becomes a broader strategy for managing people within the so within society. So through these methods, power transforms bodies into controlled, efficient, and useful instruments for society. So this is how docile bodies are basically made, and so how discipline induces control into this, induces the body with control, right? So the other point, so these are what Foucault majorly lays down in his chapter. But then there are some other point I wanted to bring. So the last point would be about, so the next chapter we're discussing about panopticon and surveillance and everything. So surveillance and algorithms were very much part of our discussions in the previous presentation. So when does docility actually occur? So I already mentioned that. So this is the transformation of to the making of docile is actually to the is in a way to is this making of bodies that are not that are somewhat soulless, like machine-like. So docility occurs when a group of people actually are so used to being watched continuously that their discipline becomes internalized, right? And they no longer have the capacity to resist as well. So this is and when people actually enter into the state, they become docile bodies.
सुनो।
So the group is
अरे
under
अब ये
constant
वीडियो बन के बादल
surveillance,
के इंस्टाग्राम पे
and
जाएगी ना,
this
तो
makes it
सबसे ज्यादा व्यूज
so
आएंगे।
that others can exert power over them without taking any much like overt action, right? So there is no action for it, there is no need for a regressive action in this sense. So the power is very subtle and it works very subtly. So the more powerful controlling group makes harsh and public examples of those who are caught acting out. So this actually leads to the rest of the group not knowing if or whether they could be caught, and forces them to watch themselves to avoid the harsh punishments they have seen previously. So surveillance actually connects docility to the prospect of docile bodies in many ways. So panopticon is one way of is an example of this. I'm sure the next present would go into the details of the prison design and everything. So the last point I wanted to bring about in connection is, so for example, so we were talking about digital surveillance and algorithm and everything. So many offices and factories now we can see that they use digital surveillance, right, to track employees' movements and to monitor our work hours and to measure our productivity. So that so they this is in order to make workers conform to the organizations or institutions' expectations and routines, right? So this is a good example of how what docile bodies actually mean today. Throughout the chapter, as a conclusion, what I would like to say is that Foucault is trying to say is that it is imperative for bodies to be receptive. That he tries to convey that how it is compulsory for bodies to be receptive, so that the logic of the arrangement, how discipline, the methodology of the discipline works, might act upon and improve them in in sense of productivity and skill. But at the same time, docility can only achieved. It's true that docility can only be achieved through acts of discipline, and it should not be confused with force or violence, but be understood as the way of directing the operations of the body. From the other thing I found understood by reading this chapter is that he
अरे
basically is
सुमन,
trying
इससे
to point out that the bodies are
अर्निंग का एक
not
बहुत बढ़िया मुझे मतलब
necessarily
आइडिया आया है
passive in
इससे।
this process of being trained, but they're very active. I mean, in the sense that they play an important role in conceptualizing the disciplinary control, especially because economy is involved, skill is involved, productivity is involved, but they're obedient, right? So there were a lot of capitalist. We were bringing a lot of capitalism with capitalist connections. So I'm sure you can make out the parallels in between. Yeah, and so for the question, definitely I thought about the digital surveillance and algorithm question, but that was a big that was a large question for me to actually bring. But so then I was also thinking about what is a docile body? What would you say is a docile body today? So how does Foucault's idea of the um, uh, sorry Yeah, so how does Foucault's idea of the docile body help us understand the ways in which society creates image of a good or ideal citizen through discipline, regulation, and control? So as citizens of nation state, right? So the current political environment that we're living in is nation state. So before, like 100 years back, there were no nation states, right? So it's important to think of our own positions as docile bodies, as citizens as well, to understand, to think about. So one of the presenters was talking about what is crime, who decides what is crime and what is illegal. So that was very insightful for me, because it really connects to this question of who decides who is a good citizen, this idea of what it means to be a good citizen. And we also, you know, yeah, that part. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dilshana. So her question, I have pasted it in the chat box. If anyone has any interpretation, anything to add, you can add. I think we can focus how Foucault has given or asked us to see the solutions or the alternatives, I mean, to resist uh, the alternatives of dominant ideology, um, how to establish autonomy, or how to establish an alternative knowledge that Foucault has means discussed. So in this reading, we mainly found that Foucault has only tried to describe the phenomena and how the punishment, it has been evolved from torture, punishment, and the last is discipline. So we have started with the last part, discipline. It covers the docile body and the corrective training and the panopticalism. So I think Foucault has here in this book discussed the or interpreted the evolution of how a body is being controlled from torture to soft power. So if anyone wants to add anything, please add. Otherwise, we will go to our next presenter.
आसपास में।
Hi,
अरे भाई सराय काली
Devi.
खान
You
निजामुद्दीन एक
want
ही
to
जगह है।
add, because we haven't heard your perspective till now. So if you have any comments, any observation. Oh, you are, yeah, you are typing. Anyone, Chahat, Sachin, yeah, Simran, Anand, Surbi, Shantoni. If anyone wants to add to docile body, to this, yeah.
I want to say about how
What
a
is this
docile body is used
docile body?
in our current time is what I think is that you like throughout his work, in my opinion, I think that Foucault is constantly trying to expose how body is the medium and through which power creates a new subjectivity. So body is the medium of creating subjectivity, and we are producing whole subjectivity in a particular way, as is as is done by the mechanisms of power relations involved in it. And how I want to relate it with with that, what do I mean by the subjectivity? Because it is how you start to like however the speaker just mentioned that we conform to the
अरे
to
मैं
the
टाइप क्यों
rules
कर रहा हूँ जब मुझे
that
फोटो
has been
खींचने का ऑप्शन है
established.
मेरे पास तो।
The body accepts it. So in a way, we experience ourselves. It functions on how we experience ourselves and how we see ourselves of what is correct.
You are not audible.
You are not audible still. Okay, then let's continue with our presentations and then we can discuss once it is complete. I think uh, um, Priyanka is left. Yeah.
Yes,
Priyanka? Yeah.
yes. A very good evening to everyone who is present in the call. So I will be talking about Foucault's discipline and punish, the means of correct training. So here Foucault talks about the shift of power from punishment to discipline. He talks about how power becomes disciplinary. It produces knowledge, order, and compliant individuals. This is done through three mechanisms. First one, hierarchical observation or surveillance. Second, normalizing judgment. And third is examination. So hierarchical observation, how this works is power is exercised through the ability to observe and monitor individuals. In earlier times, we had monarchic sovereignty where the power was visible. The king's authority was displayed in public spectacle. The subjects were invisible. In modern disciplinary society, the subjects become visible and the power itself becomes invisible. So schools, hospitals, factories, institutions, all of these are organized so that the individuals are made visible and the power itself becomes invisible. We can take some real life examples. For example, the use of CCTV within the classroom. So this is done through this process. These are monitored and controlled by people who check what is happening in the classroom. If the teacher has gone to the class, how are the students behaving? So that is being monitored. Then we also have the tracking of keystrokes on employees' laptops during work from home or remote work. So here what happens, the subject internalizes the surveillance and eventually they begin to police themselves. The next one is normalizing judgment. Here, Foucault talks about how disciplinary institutions operate by setting some norms. These are standards of correct behavior, performance, or appearance, and then measuring the individuals against those norms. So, disciplinary power operates through a very continuous and minute system of rewards and punishment. Every deviation from the norm is corrected through subtle mechanisms of evaluation, ranking, and comparison. So here we have penalty of the norm. This creates a powerful internalized pressure to conform. So power judges not only what people do, but who they are, and it seeks to transform them accordingly. So modern society produces conformity and docility not only through laws and decrees, but through silent, repetitive operation of the norm. Last, we come to the
अरे
examination.
सिर्फ
Now,
वो
the
दो ना, इसमें
examination
अभी
is
कुछ कुछ
both a
डालेंगे ना.
form of surveillance and a process of documentation. This objectifies individuals by recording and classifying their qualities, abilities, and behaviors. This allows continuous control and assessment. So modern power also produces individuals as objects of knowledge. The human sciences like psychology, pedagogy, criminology, medicine, these are
हमारे
born
रूम में
from this
एक देवदास पैदा
intersection
हुआ
of
आज ही
power
आज ही.
and knowledge. By studying individuals, these disciplines justify and reinforce the different systems of control. In conclusion, we can
Net
say that
hinting.
the disciplinary society creates a new type of individual,
वाईफाई से कनेक्ट
the
करो,
docile
हॉटस्पॉट
body.
से चला.
It is a body that can be trained, controlled, and optimized for production. Disciplinary power operates not through visible force, but through the silent coercion of routine practices. It produces knowledge, enforces norms, and creates individuals who monitor and correct themselves. So, the means of correct training, this is a study of how power becomes internalized and how individuals become both the subject and instrument of their own discipline. So I will just paste the topics for discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone is tired right now, so let me clap for you. Yeah, the process of creating.
The process of creating docile bodies and how this is particularly relevant in case of gender, how
तू तो बता भोसड़ी की क्या रसमलाई है जो मैंने तो एक रसमलाई में हिस्सा किया है तो मैंने तो पहली लपेट दी
So there are many examples you can see, like starting from Bollywood to our Bengali homes. So there are many examples to it. So I'm thinking if we can find out some example which we have not yet discussed or not yet studied regarding gender roles or disciplining the body. Like if someone has mentioned about caste, I have seen in the chat box. So if you want, um, you can give your perspective.
अरे बहन को खाए वो रसमलाई और ना खाए का हंसा रहे हो
yes, when today often we have these kinds of activities which come in the news about how certain castes dominate over others, try to punish those from
बहन
uh,
के लिए मार रोटी
different
बनवा के
castes, and
बना के चोदे
they try to
बहन तो पहनने के लिए
they
नहीं
commit
मार
atrocities, apparently trying
देख रहा
to
हो तू देख रहा
put them in their place. So this is also a kind of more violent kind of coercion, but somewhere we have the discourse and the socio-cultural scenario. So that also contributes to
Himself
this.
using abusive language.
Somewhere where when we remain silent and we accept these, they are perhaps those who are silent, they are also complicit somewhere in this.
Yeah, but if we do not talk about atrocities, then also how the people from different caste groups are getting disciplined, or how the upper caste is benefiting from them without even engaging in untouchability, untouchability in some sense, not physical untouchability, but if you see in the marketplaces, even it is applicable to the religion, Hindus, Muslims. If the marketplace in a city is dominated by upper caste Hindus, then it is very difficult for the lower caste people from lower caste to buy a shop over there, or to start their business, or for a person from belong to Muslim religion to start their shop. So this is kind of soft power, I will say. It will not means it is a part of what Foucault is actually or theorizing docile bodies. So yeah, we see news and everything, but we have to means see the everyday networks and agencies that are happening even around us, like in a marketplace, or it is very difficult to get home for a single woman or single man. So this is also applicable to these places. So if you have any other examples, you can say. Now I have another example. I think you have seen a video has become very viral. So a school bus was there, and there were many students in the bus, and a group of students, I think they were from 5 or 6, 7, mostly hardly class from belong class 5, 6, 7. They were calling out a couple who have dressed a little bit with wore a big chain, and they were chapri. So so this has been so normalized. I don't think and the persons were blaming the school, but I don't think a school is teaching these words, but rather the peer group or the cousins, the family, they are also involved in shaping, like how did you dress like this, you look like kajer me, you look like a chapri, which is also community identity. Means the word chapri, tapori, chamar, it is a community identity in India, and you cannot just use this as slangs. So this is not atrocious, but this is social digital abuse, which can be interpreted with Foucauldian lens. And there are many other, I have also given few references, we can read that, because for punishment or for prisons, I do not have much work or much knowledge on that particular area, but I have read few papers on Dalit women and prisons, and how they are doubly oppressed in the prisons as a woman and as a woman from a lower caste. So we can continue with our presentation. Otherwise, it will be difficult for us to wrap today, as we started a little bit late. Yeah. So Simran.
Yeah, hi. I also didn't introduce myself. So, hi everyone, I'm Simran. I will try my best to be quick. Is there an echo? Because I think, yeah, I think it's fine now. All right. So, I'm also from Kolkata. I've done my bachelor's and master's in English, and I did not take up an optional course on Foucault, which is why I'm here now after many, many years. I went on to work in education. I've done another master's in education, and I've pursued my PhD also in the sociology of education from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And Foucault is always that very interesting, fascinating persona. I've read very little. So my summary is going to be very true to the chapter, which I've chosen, in fact, on the panopticon. So, in this chapter, Foucault presents a genealogy or evolution of the nature of power. And this is really continuing from where Dilshana left off. He presents three contrasting models: one of the leper, the second of the plague stricken town, and the third is the panopticon. So, to begin, in the first part of the chapter, he conjures a picture of a 17th century plague stricken town and the efforts the administration makes to contain the spread of the plague, which takes place through spatial division of the town into distinct quarters, each governed by an intendant, each street under a syndic to keep surveillance. Basically, what he calls a segmented, immobile, frozen space where inspections take place, where the gaze is always alert, prompt obedience is ensured, and there's absolute authority of the magistrates. It's a great review of the living and dead, he says. He contrasts this image with that of the leper, who, on the other hand, were marked and separated, and hence this gave rise to the rituals of exclusion. Foucault says that both these, the plague stricken town and the leper, represented a very different political dream. One was of the pure community, the leper, and the other of a disciplined society, which is the plague stricken town. He says that these were different projects, but not incompatible ones, and that they actually came together in the 19th century through Bentham's idea of the panopticon. So, what is the panopticon? Conceptualized by Bentham, who was an English philosopher. I've added a footnote in the handout, and there's a small image that I found on the internet of it is basically an annular ring-shaped building at the periphery with a with a tower at the center. And this tower is pierced with wide windows that open onto the inner side of the ring. The peripheric building is divided into cells, each of which extends the whole width of the building. So it covers that entire space. And those cells have two windows, one on the inside, corresponding to the windows of the tower, so that anybody who's sitting in the tower can actually look into those the windows of the cell. The other on the outside allows the light to cross the cell from one end to the other so that each cell is backlit. Any observer can look at all the inhabitants of the cell at once from the tower in the center. So this is the design of the panopticon. Each individual in his place is securely confined to a cell from which he is seen from the front by the supervisor. But the side walls prevent him from coming to contact with his companions. Right? So he is seen, but he does not see. He is the object of information, never a subject in communication. The arrangement of his room opposite the central tower imposes on him an axial visibility, but the divisions of the ring, those separated cells, imply a lateral invisibility. And I'm, of course, using all of Foucault as much as I could have in the summary. And this invisibility is a guarantee of order. So, the major effect of the panopticon is to induce the inmate a state of conscious and permanent visibility that assures the automatic functioning of power. And I think nothing is powerful than Foucault's own words. Sorry, I'm adding my own commentary on the side on this. What makes the panopticon efficient is that it can reduce the number of those who exercise power while increasing the number of those on whom it is exercised. It is possible to intervene at any moment because the constant pressure acts even before the offense or the mistake is committed. It is exercised spontaneously without any noise, without any physical instrument, only through architecture and geometry. It gives power of mind over mind, different from the physical power or violent power that the plague stricken town had. It assures its efficacy by its preventive character, continuous function, and automatic mechanisms. So this is basically how the fabulous design of this, what Foucault has also called a machine, because that is what it ultimately also is, besides being an architectural design. But what is the purpose of the panopticon? So, unlike the model of the leper or the plague stricken town, which were a response to the exceptional evil of disease, the panopticon model is a more generalizable way of functioning, a way of defining power relations in terms of the everyday lives of people. But Foucault, it could also be, but according to Foucault, it could also be a laboratory to try out various kinds of experiments. It also allows for supervision of its own mechanisms. So a director may spy on employees, but the director himself can also be observed. So there are multiple layers and levels at which observation can take place. So also it's very, very versatile. Foucault calls it polyvalent in its applications. It can reform prisoners, treat patients, instruct school children, confine the insane, put beggars and idlers to work. So there are many, many purposes of this uh, great machine that has been invented. So there are two images then of discipline. At one extreme, you have the discipline blockade, the enclosed institution established on the edges of society. At the other end, with panopticism, is the discipline mechanism, a functional mechanism that must improve the exercise of power by making it lighter, more rapid, more effective, a design of what he calls subtle coercion. And by subtle coercion, what Foucault means is how discipline is used not as an external violent force, but habits and behaviors that come to be internalized by individuals and ultimately help improve their skills and usefulness. So it's also about improvement and becoming useful. And again, it's important to remember that Bentham, came up with the philosophy of utilitarianism. So efficiency, utility were really at the heart of what he was also trying to design. That is what happens in the workshop or in the school where people prepare to be useful. In this sense, it becomes a productive force as well. It's not just discipline, it's also a lot of production happening. Over the 18th century, these disciplinary mechanisms increased in their number, and their mechanisms also became deinstitutionalized, which I think is really important to understand, because what it means is they broke away from formal institutions but became a more integral part of society. So here Foucault gives the example of the Christian school that must not simply train docile children. It must also make it possible to supervise their parents, to gain information as to their way of life, their resources, their piety, their morals, or the spread of disciplinary procedures, not in the form of enclosed institutions, but as centers of observation disseminated throughout society. So they are actually going out and doing this work, the missionary work, collecting data essentially on whether things are functioning okay or not, whether people are conforming to societal norms or the norms of religion, and so on. And finally, he says that the state ultimately comes to control these mechanisms of discipline. So he's given us an evolution of what happens and the models that have been, sort of used in a sense to reach this point. And he comments on these moments of historical transformation. So, one thing he says is how society changed from a sort of social quarantine to an indefinitely generalizable mechanism of panopticism. This is one moment. Another one he points out is that civilization in the antiquity, in the time of the Greeks, had been a civilization of spectacle, where the goal was to render accessible to a multitude of men the inspection of a small number of objects. That was the goal in the antiquity. And that was the problem to which the architecture of temples, theaters, circuses were responding. They were trying to make a small group of objects visible to a large multitude of people. He says the modern age, it's the opposite problem that is posed. Here, the problem is to procure for a small number or even for a single individual the instantaneous view of a great multitude. And even as I say these words, the image that I get is that, of the internet, which of course, wasn't in this form during Foucault's time, but it's interesting to see how we are still sort of in that historical phase almost. This is a society in which the principal elements are no longer the community and public life, but on the one hand, private individuals, and on the other, the state. Again, I found this very, very telling because, this is what we are seeing in a very, very real way, where the state is colluding with the private, with that 1% of the wealthy in the world, and everything belongs to them, whether it's resources, whether it's the labor of people. So it's not a spectacle society, but a surveillance society. So, the beginnings of the surveillance society are clearly in the 17th or 18th century. And I think it's continued up to now. But I'm also curious to think about whether we are still in the surveillance society or has it transformed with the digital age. Another important point he makes is that of the Enlightenment, which discovered the liberties. Now, we know that a lot of the values of equality, fraternity, and sovereignty came up during the Enlightenment, but he points out that at the same time, it also invented the disciplines. That is, the various techniques of power that shape behavior, bodies, and minds, and these can be institutionalized practices that are found in schools, prisons, hospitals, military barracks, factories, like what she spoke about, routines and timetables. So finally, he speaks about the insidious nature of power in panopticism. Even though modern society appears to limit power through laws and rights, the widespread use of surveillance allows power to operate beneath and beyond those legal limits, quietly, pervasively, and asymmetrically. So, if we have to reflect on it, there are several ways in which we've experienced the panopticon ourselves. And technology is the most pervasive, since it's now we've been speaking about the algorithm that tracks our internet activity, whether we have the camera, CCTVs on the streets or on offices, in classrooms, the biometric scanners at work, or the data that went to the government through Aadhaar, which a lot of people opposed and resisted, but we ultimately all had to give in to it if we needed to be functional citizens in the country. So, with that, I end my summary. I hope it was understandable. And I've put in 5 questions because I really didn't know which were good, sensible questions to ask and which were not. But yeah, while reading, what I could think of was um, one question that came to my mind was, does visibility or being observed always lead to self regulation? And I was thinking of this in terms of trolls, because trolls very often with their actual identities, not higher identities, also troll people. And they know they might get backlash for it, but still they go ahead and do it. While I know there's a certain level of anonymity there, but still it's an interesting thing to think about, that when they know they are being observed, then or watched, then why do they still troll? Why do they engage in that behavior? And again, I think the digital space is easy to link with the panopticon. Another question I thought of was, how do we understand the way in which we curate visibility and concealment? We hide certain parts of ourselves and reveal others. So, what does this say? Are we disciplining ourselves, or are we exercising our agency and resisting surveillance? So, these are two among the 5 questions that I they came to me while I was doing the reading. So, yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, can't hear you, Shoini.
Yeah. Thank you. Very well articulated, Simran. So, if anyone wants to add on Simran's um panopticon, means Simran's reading to Foucaultian panopticon, you can. Um, I was wondering, as I I have came across that there are many participants who are reading Foucault for the first time, or do not have much in-depth understanding of Foucault. So it is easy for you to read, because we have already seen Harry Potter's movie so much. So there is a school, there is state. So there is, I think, there is one movie where Harry Potter tried to build a secret army, means Dumbledore's army, to fight against the state implemented regulation, and there are many Foucauldian interpretation as well. So yeah, that's one interpretation that Foucault also suggested, that we have to create a resistance, alternative resistance. Now, alternative resistance can, yes, it can be with secret groups that we have already read in nationalist movements, Emin Roy. There are many underground groups where they are. So Foucault will say that yes, we have to build those kind of groups to create an alternative resistance or alternative strength to the dominant system. And if you see, there are many other ideas will be those groups, those secret groups require much energy, much stake of our life, our happiness and everything. So there are many other alternatives we have to think, not to continuously violently resisting, but how to be happy, how to be relaxed, how to be in our peace with ourselves, and also to resist with the day to day, means the power structure. It is not about we are facing it starting from our home. We are if you are from, I don't know about the your institute, but in government in universities, administration is hell, means I have to I have to go for 2-3 days to take one signature after doing a lot of fighting.
Why?
Now it go is to interpret from our own experience, not just to read some thinkers, as there are many thinkers and Foucault has been highly referred or cited in India. So not only to read from their lens, but to think how we can read Foucault. Like I told you about Harry Potter, you can search your own movie and try to see. If you have, there is another movie, Nail Polish. Arjun Rampal is there. If you have seen, it's a very good movie. You can also see that movie. You have seen, no, Sachin? Okay, so you are like, okay. So, it's a very good movie and psychological thriller. You can watch that movie. So we can also analyze it through Foucauldian lens. Not only, yes, caste, class, everything we have already discussed, but how to go beyond this thing means we have a means. I think it is my personal experience.
I think it's frozen again, right?
I think so.
To I have stayed a few months in Northeast, and my father was in North to few of the state of Northeast. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, you're audible now.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Hmm.
It's just saying your network bandwidth is low.
I can see that. Let me just see. I can change.
Prashanti, do you want to speak in the meanwhile since we're running a little late?
Oh, okay, okay. Um, I forgot where did I want to start. They are adding to the panopticon and also whatever we have discussed so far. And taking in the information that she said that and not everybody has done an in-depth study on Google. I'm also not an expert, but I wanted to add a little by saying like I think the whole significance of reading Foucault is that he gives a lot of information and exposes power relation in different institutions, which seem very neutral and in first glance. But then on a deeper analysis, you get to see how he contributes to authority and like governmentality, which he discusses in depth later on. And then what I find most interesting and fascinating about studying Foucault is that you learn how to become a free subject. I mean, it doesn't mean that your society is bad. And I know it's very pessimistic. People tend to take Foucault in a very pessimistic way. But the way I see it is you get to see the elementary way in how every institution functions. And that is an information that is not available to everybody, neither in academics nor anywhere. It's not a broad conversation that is had in our mass culture. And to even be aware of this is just educating democracy because democracy needs an educated members of the society. You know, like you not have a group, only a group that is taking care of your speech, like what are your rights. Everybody has to be educated so that everybody can participate in this democracy that we are talking about and that we want. So he is very crucial and he helps us. And obviously, there are a lot more thinkers who contribute to this. And also catching up on Simran's about how she said about Aadhaar card and registration, citizenship, and that is clearly an extension of the leper society that was prevalent like in the Middle Ages. There is a thinker called Herbert Marcuse, and he talks about a one-dimensional man. Okay, and then I find relevant in this is that um, in the society we all have to register. Then we have like a consent based control. Like at this point we don't have an option kind of. So it legitimizes our how it legitimizes our each position of the society. From the moment we are born, we become a student, and then we become a college student, and then we become a professional, and then we become a worker. Like, do we ever get to exist as ourselves, or are we? We have gotten to the point where we do not even identify that who is controlling. We do not identify our oppressor anymore because we do not see them. And then what it does is that it creates a one single narrative. Like, the society is so docile, the society is so systemized that you cannot exist outside the system. If you're not registered, you fail to be identified as an individual. You're not existent in the entire world. You cannot travel. You basically do not exist. You only have a body. You do not have a personal identity which the system creates. But what I'm talking about, the self, is like a more personal creation of the self. Like, I'm sure people. I saw Sachin got confused when I mentioned that, do you ever exist as yourself? What I'm talking is you always have a label. You always have a label of whom, what, and how should you exist. Like, when you're a student, you want to become a good student. When you're a member of a society, you want to be a productive member of a society. And it is that, it's as if, like, if we do not fail, like if we fail to fulfill this criteria, we put it on ourselves. Now, I'm a failure. I'm failing myself. Like it's a personal collapse of our identity. But it's not that. Life is more than just that. There are so many complexities that come together to form a life. So you should not only exist as an institutional self, but also, expand and widen and deepen. And the main thing about Foucault is he's always talking about, creating yourself. But so there are so many institutions that wants to create you in a certain manner, in a way that benefits them, in a way that interests their interest. But I'm talking about, create a self that you see, that you envision, and he gives that autonomy. That agency is about being free, and that agency is basically what it means to have autonomy. That is the crux of existential philosophers, is like, you are not just a mass. You're not a member of a mass, a faceless crowd. You know yourself, you see yourself. You don't see yourself through the gaze of someone else. You see yourself from your within. And that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. That was really inspiring.
Yeah, I think let us go to our last presenter for today. And we have completed our first reading, that is Discipline and Power. So we will go to Madness and Civilization. Swapnajit will present Discipline and Punish. We have completed. So now we will go with Madness and Civilization.
Is it possible if my presentation is on tomorrow or tomorrow, if this possible, because it's getting late. I have some to, if it is possible.
Oh, you are not comfortable right now? Okay. So,
Okay, can my presentation on tomorrow, if it is possible?
okay.
And also there, it's the new, actually new book also. So I think it would be better if we begin with a
Yeah.
new uh, uh, topic. So
Yeah, that would be great, Sohini.
Yeah, no problem. So tomorrow, please join
Curious, we start our
early.
session a bit earlier rather than from 6:45. Could it start it a bit earlier so it would be better? Otherwise, would get late like today, if it is possible.
No, yeah, the workshop's timing is 7 to 10:30 p.m. and it went late because we started with the introduction and uh, our introductions are so heavy, no? So much academic achievements and everything to say, and we could not finish all the introductions as well. So we will skip the introduction part, and there is a document uploaded. You can write your bio on that, and you can connect with others via mail and phone number if they are comfortable. So I don't think tomorrow it will be late because we have otherwise went in a schedule only. So yeah, any more comments on that? Means comments on the uh, today's text. So this text I personally find very difficult. Discipline and punish. The language is difficult. The other text is very relatable and it's little bit easy to understand. It is little bit difficult. I think it will be easier for those who have completed law because it's more about. But we have understood, na, from torture, punish, and then discipline, and how the transition happened and who is benefiting from anything. Yeah. So any comments? Otherwise, we will wrap and okay then. See you tomorrow.
So, just few lines before wrapping up, as we were discussing about panopticon, and so as Simran already explained it very well, but I just want to add a few things which will be quite interesting. As the idea of panopticon, as developed by Jeremy Bentham, so he himself got this idea from his brother who was a civil engineer, and while one of his visits to him, his brother was sitting on some higher lands, and from there he was watching all his workers doing the work. So he asked him that why are you sitting when you are the like a type of authority, or when you are the owner, so why are you sitting in the sun so high? You can sit somewhere else. So he said that no, when I sit here, it doesn't matter that if I see them or not, but the workers who are working there, they behave and they work properly. Means they have the fear that yes, they are being watched. From there, he got the idea of panopticon, and later it was developed in a structured way, as Simran saw. So after that, as this idea of sorry this idea of just a moment, I forgot the latter part of the question. It was, I think, about, so yes, the circular watchtower that Simran already saw to us. The goal was to make surveillance constant and visible, but the watchers themselves unseen. The means the one who is watching, he will be never seen, or the workers will not know that at what exact time they are being seen. So we can clearly connect it to our day-to-day lives in modern days also. Like whenever we see CCTV anywhere, so what we do, we behave. So people who tend to do crimes, they are either uh, masking themselves, or they are hiding their identity. But if they are doing some crimes on CCTV, or if they have the fear that yes, they are being watched, so they behave. So the idea that being watched is itself a sense of awareness that we should not do what society says us that it is not correct. So yes, that's the panopticon as per my readings.
Uh,
I have also an observation. May I make about panopticon?
Yes, yes.
And
Yes,
yes,
so
okay, okay. Let him finish
the
first.
idea
Then
of panopticon, if we look at from a Gill's delusion framework, we find that before panopticon there was a structure. This structure was arboreal, means it was tree-like. There is a center or at the top, and from the top at the bottom, people are being observed. But right now, I think the very idea of panopticon has become, I would say, deterritorialized. It means now it has become rhizomatic. It means that it is no longer there is a center, but it has been spread across all over through our smartphones, through our devices. We are our activities are being noted down and they are being observed by an invisible, I would say, invisible structure, power structure. So right now, I think panopticon no longer remains a very structure like it does not remain like a tree-like structure, but it has become like grass. It is all over the places which control us. It is very difficult to find the center. We do not know where center. It has become invisible. This is my, I think, observation.
Yeah, there are many examples. I think if I speak any more example, people will like now go and have some food, get some sleep. So I will continue the example tomorrow. And thank you everyone for joining us and really had a wonderful day today and looking forward to tomorrow's session. I'm really very excited for this. So, good night, and we'll meet tomorrow. And if you have anything, you can email.
sure. Thank you so much, each and everyone who connected, and thanks to especially Sony for providing this platform so that we can learn from each other's reading, because reading a 300 or 400 pages book is a hefty task for all of us, but if we are doing it in parts, it makes not it not only makes our work easy, but also with cumulative efforts and different mindsets we learn, and we achieve more in less efforts. So, thanks to you once again. See you all
Yeah,
tomorrow.